What a game by Real Madrid. Absolute masterclass. Back to the Real Madrid of old. That scary Real Madrid. The one that you can't help but think there's some big things coming very soon for this team. Today, they absolutely demolished, eviscerated their rival. A tactical masterclass by Álvaro Arbeloa. Player performances were peak. We are seeing the reason why maybe a change in coaching was the right decision. What I do want to talk about is the hand Álvaro Arbeloa has in today's performance. And it doesn't just start with today's tactics, the way he goes out and tells the players to play, the lineup he chooses. No. This has been starting since the moment he got there. The first thing he does is he gives patience and power and pride back to the players. Whereas maybe Real Madrid supporters, Real Madrid fans, were starting to think that the players are the reason why everything was failing. Instead of carrying on that narrative, Arbeloa said, no, you have to support the players no matter what. They may be in a down time, they may be not playing the best football of the season, but we have to support the players. Vinny was one of the players that was struggling the most to find his form. Arbeloa said, as long as Vinny is fit, he's going to play every single game and the entirety of the game. This is a deep contrast to what Xabi Alonso wanted, which is to sub out Vinny any chance he got because he wasn't doing well enough. Finding reasons to pull out players because they weren't playing at the intensity that Xabi Alonso wanted. Here he said, no, it's not about merit. It's not about if you're in good form. If you're a superstar and I know what you can do, you're on the field, regardless of whether you've been doing it or not lately. A psychological shift happened in Real Madrid, and it's happening. After the boos, he said, the people booing in the Bernabeu are not real Real Madrid fans. Real Real Madrid fans don't only show up when we win. They also show up when we lose. They also show up when we're having a hard time. He basically took the pressure completely off of the players, took the pressure completely off of the president, put the entire pressure on him. But the way you see him, the way his body language is, the way he speaks in press conferences, he has no pressure on him either. The pressure was gone with Xabi Alonso. And I think the players are starting to feel that, and we saw it reflected in today's game. Now, I don't know how much of this performance is because Monaco was a really bad team, and how much of it is because Real Madrid is starting to find their form. How much of it has to do with what Álvaro Arbeloa wants from this team? How much of it has to do with his tactics? How much of it has to do with the way he's managing personalities in the locker room? There's a shift happening in Real Madrid. I feel it. Xabi Alonso, one of his main things that he wanted to implement into this Real Madrid team was the high press, the aggressive pressing. And Real Madrid had been doing it for a little while with Xabi Alonso. But after a while, you started seeing that the intensity dropped off. And they no longer pressured aggressively for the ball. They kind of sat back and waited. Something that went completely against what Xabi Alonso wanted. Today, we saw the most aggressive, organized pressing. The minute Real Madrid would lose the ball, 3 or 4 players would jump on the player with the ball. Second pressing, third pressing, second ball, third ball. And just like that, they had possession again. The other difference that we saw today was the minute they recovered that ball, it was a counterattack. And today, if not all those goals, most of those goals were off of heavy, extreme, intense pressing, recovery, counterattack. It was a masterclass by Álvaro Arbeloa today. Masterclass. And the reason I say that is because he didn't change up really the players that were on the field. It's same old players, but the instructions changed. The ideas changed. The energy changed. The tactics were completely different today, but they were simple tactics. They weren't overcomplicated ideas. They weren't 6 hours of training video footage. They weren't reinventing the wheel type of instructions. They were, let's go back to our primal, most simple version of how this team can succeed. Today we saw Real Madrid try to play through the middle, try to play short, and when it wasn't there, they tried to play through the sides and play long. When it wasn't on one side, it was a complete switch to the other side, cutting out the middleman. The play was direct, but also it was protecting the ball. Today I saw a Real Madrid that is, honestly, I haven't seen since a very long time. I think today Real Madrid looked very good. Now again, how much of it has to do with the rival? I don't know. That is for time. to tell me. But today, Real Madrid looked scary. The other thing that is a stark contrast to Xabi Alonso is today you had players on the field that, with Xabi Alonso, a lot of people were saying they don't connect well. They can't play together. They can't be on the field at the same time. And we saw things today that completely disproved that theory. Jude Bellingham and Arda Güler both started. Both had space on the field. They didn't run into each other. They both had their roles. One of them was more attacking. The other one was more transitioning. But neither of them had to drop too much to defend. That was for other players to do. Vini and Mbappe were constantly shifting in the attack, as well as Mastantuono. Those three players were constantly rotating, something that you didn't see with Xabi Alonso too much. You just saw them get in each other's way rather than rotate. Very different. You saw Vini at the 9, you saw Mbappe on the wing, but then you saw Mbappe on the right wing, and then you saw Mbappe the striker. Mastantuono would tuck in. Valverde would go into the middle. So many rotating players within the whole scheme of today's lineup. Today, Arbeloa started with two midfielders as the fullbacks. No Fran Garcia. I don't know if Carreras either has a red card or is injured. Trent is still injured. Carvajal is coming back slowly. Mendy is non-existent in the lineup. Today, Camavinga and Valverde were the left back and right back. And today, in my opinion, the best player on the field, at least in the first half, was not Kylian Mbappe, was not Vini Jr. It was Tchouaméni. Amazing performance. Every one-on-one, he recovered the ball and it was back to attacking. Classic Mourinho ball. And this coach, a lot of people were saying, I don't know if he's self-proclaimed or the press has said that a lot of Arbeloa's tactics, a lot of Arbeloa's philosophies and ideas have to do with Jose Mourinho. Very interesting, because Jose Mourinho came at a time in Real Madrid's history where they were struggling to get back on top of their football in Spain and in Europe. And slowly but surely, they became a powerhouse again. Obviously, it wasn't until Ancelotti comes around that they start winning the Champions League. But competing against one of the greatest, if not the greatest team in Pep Guardiola's Barcelona was no small task. And they did it multiple times. Today, Álvaro Arbeloa is showing that he can adapt to these players, that he might have been the right choice, and that not only is he managing this team's football, he's also managing this team's morale. It's the most important thing. Today, Real Madrid, the players, looked like they were having fun. They were enjoying their football. Let's talk about a few things before we get into players. Kylian Mbappe today was a leader, a captain. Every time someone would score, he gathered his team so that they can celebrate together. Today, Vini scored a goal and had 3 assists, if you count the own goal as well. Bellingham had a goal. Mastantuono had a goal. Vini scored a golazo today. He didn't celebrate it. He's showing the Real Madrid stadium, the fans, that he's not happy with how he's been being treated. Today, he balled out. Vini Jr., for me, is the man of the match. I don't know who actually won man of the match. We'll check that out in a little bit. But for me, Vini was man of the match today, showing that he's still here. He just needed the right hand to guide him. So this is how they lined him up, a 4-3-3. Yeah, they gave Vini the man of the match. They lined up in a 4-3-3, but it was different from what we're seeing here. See, they gave Vini 2 assists. If you count the own goal, it's 3 assists for Vini. 1 to Mbappe, 1 to Mastantuono, 1 for the own goal, and then he scored a golazo. Golazo. Vintage Vini. The Vini that we were missing. As I'm speaking here today, for the few of you that have been watching my videos, you know that I am a Barcelona fan. But above all, I'm a football fan. I don't like Real Madrid because Real Madrid gets away with a lot of refereeing help, usually. A lot of penalties, a lot of diving and believing it. A lot of suspicious referee performances. But when Real Madrid plays really good football, I watch. And I enjoy. I still think to this day, Real Madrid's 2022 Champions League run is the single best championship run, at least in Champions League history. Absolutely. I think in all of sports, I'd argue it. I enjoyed watching Real Madrid that year. And I'm not a Real Madrid fan. I'm a football fan. As long as calls are fair, as long as both teams are treated equally, as long as there's no controversy or corruption or suspicion, if Real Madrid wins, they win fairly, I love it because it's good football. It's good football. What La Liga constantly does to try to sabotage one team or the other, because Barcelona is not the only one that gets sabotaged. There's a lot of times that Real Madrid gets sabotaged. It's true. It ruins the game. That's why I like Champions League, because you get a little bit less of that. Spanish referees are no longer trusted in Europe. And it just goes to show there's a reason for that. But anyway, let's get back to the game. I want to talk more than what we're looking at FOTMob. I want to talk more about this. So as we saw, the lineup was basically a 4-3-3. Tchouaméni, Güler, Bellingham, Vini, Mbappe, Mastantuono. But what I wanted to talk about is the way they played today. The way they looked off the ball, the way they looked on the ball. Off the ball, it's very simple. These guys tucked back. These guys came back here. It's more like this, actually. And Vini here, recovering, and Mbappe up here. This is what they looked like defensively. Now, granted, they didn't have to play too defensively today. Today, they dominated the possession, and then when it came time to give Monaco the ball, they allowed Monaco the ball, but not sitting back and waiting. Pressuring, high pressuring, intense pressuring, recovering, and counterattacking. It was a very simple football today, but it's a football that works for this team. On the ball, though, when they were in possession, this is what it looked like. A lot of times, let's just say, Vini starts off on the wing, Mastantuono on the wing, Kylian Mbappe on the wing. Camavinga, who's not a fullback, would hang out behind Vini for support. Valverde, more of a false back. Instead of supporting him, he did have some overlapping runs, but for the most part, instead of supporting Mastantuono outside, he would support Mastantuono inside. At this point, Dean and Asensio would spread out, and Tchouaméni would tuck in as a center back, as a center half. Bellingham would hover, and Güler sat here. It got to a point where we were playing like this. I say. Am I becoming a Real Madrid fan? They were playing like this. Yeah, obviously Jude would hover around here. Sometimes he'd tuck in here. Most of the time it was like this. And then sometimes it would be like this. Other times it would be like this. Right? But Güler was the transition guy. He was the one who would transition the defense into the offense. And it looked like this. A lot of times, 3 defenders. And in this way, Güler and Bellingham, they wouldn't get in the way of each other. One had a role behind the attackers. The other had a role in the midfield. They didn't get in the way of each other. Camavinga's a midfielder. Valverde's a midfielder. They were playing as fullbacks. But in the end, they were supporting like midfielders. They didn't feel out of place. They didn't feel like, I have to be back here. No. They were part of the play. Honestly, a tactical masterclass by Arbeloa. So simple, but yet this is what this team was missing. At certain points, Mbappe would go to the wing, and Vini would be here. A lot of times, you'd see Vini here, Bellingham would go up, Mastantuono would go up, Valverde would be here, and Mbappe would play like a 10. All while Güler was providing balance, and Tchouaméni was holding it down with the other 2 center backs. Camavinga always offering support. If Vini couldn't go forward, he'd go back to him, or he'd find Güler, Mbappe, or Jude. And it looked like that. Today, Real Madrid looked scary. I'm going to tell you. And it looked exciting. Now I'm looking forward to watching Real Madrid a lot more. Watching Real Madrid up until this moment of the season was so boring. It was honestly so boring. They didn't have any clear footballing ideas. They didn't have any clear tactical ideas. No creativity at all. And today you just saw the exact opposite. Maybe it wasn't the type of football that Xabi wanted to play, but it's the type of football that Real Madrid needs to play. I think Xabi Alonso, as much as he was a Real Madrid guy, as much as he learned under Ancelotti, under Mourinho, he also learned a lot under Guardiola. He learned a lot from German football, which is completely different from what this Real Madrid team represents. He wanted to play beautiful football, possession football, high pressing, and maybe that's not what this team is about. This team was built to counterattack. This team was built to defend. This team was built to be explosive at the right moments. And today, Alvaro Arbeloa set up a lineup that was perfect for that game plan. And we saw players that weren't supposed to be together according to the narrative that most people had created behind this team. And today, they all connected extremely well. There's a lot of trouble coming towards Barcelona's way. With the dropping of points this weekend, with Real Madrid just one step behind them, and now they're starting to find their full form with a Kylian Mbappe that is the best player on the planet right now, with players that are starting to find their rhythm, with players that are starting to learn their teammates' tendencies. Watch out for Real Madrid this season. That's all I'm going to say. Guys, if you enjoyed this, subscribe, send me a comment, like the video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Tomorrow will be about Barcelona. And tomorrow, Barcelona needs to win because they need to try to fight for that top 8, which they are not in. Real Madrid is in the top 8. And then tomorrow, once those games are done, we'll actually look at the entire league standing with all the games having been played. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.